beyond the boundaries of reality, where imagination weaves dreams into existence. Welcome to Storylight. In the quiet town of Ardrin, nestled at the edge of a forgotten forest, there existed a library like no other. The Archive of Echoes. This library wasn't simply a place of books and scrolls. It was said to house the lost knowledge of centuries, the thoughts and dreams of those who had come before. Its shelves were filled with volumes that seemed to whisper in languages no one understood, and its halls were said to stretch beyond the confines of time itself. Ellis, a young scholar, had always been fascinated by the archive. Orphaned as a child, he was raised by his grandmother, who had once been a keeper of its secrets. But one day, she had disappeared, leaving only cryptic notes and a single key with a strange inscription. Now, years later, Ellis found himself standing before the iron gates of the archive. The key in his hand felt heavier than it ever had before. It was time to uncover the truth. Ellis entered the archive, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of dust. The vast halls stretched out before him, filled with towering shelves that seemed to go on forever. He had been here as a child, but now everything seemed different, as though the very air was imbued with a sense of waiting. At the heart of the archive stood a massive oak door, its surface covered in intricate symbols. Ellis inserted the key into the door's lock, feeling a jolt of energy surge through him as the door creaked open. Inside was a chamber unlike anything he had ever imagined. The walls were lined with mirrors, each one reflecting a different time, a different place. It was as if the room was an entryway to every moment that had ever existed. Ellis stepped forward, and one of the mirrors pulsed with light. A figure appeared within it, his grandmother, standing in the middle of a desolate landscape. She looked at him with eyes filled with sorrow. "You must find the archivist," she whispered, before the image faded into darkness. Determined to understand his grandmother's message, Ellis scoured the archive for answers. He came across an ancient manuscript detailing the history of the archivist, an elusive figure who had once been the heart of the archive. The archivist was said to have the power to shape time itself, to weave the threads of history and future with a single gesture. But according to the manuscript, the archivist had vanished long ago, leaving only a cryptic warning. The archivist is not lost, but hidden. To find them, you must follow the path of forgotten names. Ellis pondered the words. The path of forgotten names. What did it mean? Ellis began his search by seeking out the forgotten names. People who had once been important to the archive, but whose records had mysteriously disappeared. His first clue came from an old diary he found tucked away in a dusty corner. The diary belonged to a woman named Lyra, who had once been the chief scribe of the archive. Her last entry was dated just before her disappearance. "I have discovered the truth about the archivist, but it is not a truth anyone can bear." Ellis knew that Lyra must have uncovered something critical, but what? His search led him to a hidden room deep within the archive, where he found a series of cryptic portraits. Each portrait depicted a person who had vanished without a trace, their names erased from all records. At the center of the room stood an empty frame, waiting for a final portrait. Ellis continued to investigate, following every lead and diving deeper into the mysteries of the archive. He came across a journal written by his grandmother, detailing her own time as an archivist. She wrote of an experiment that had gone wrong, of the archivist's power being too great to control, and of a decision she had made to protect the world from its consequences. The more Ellis read, the more he understood. The archivist wasn't a person. It was a role, a burden passed down through generations. Each archivist held the power to bend time and reality. But the price was always the same. The archivist would lose themselves, their identity fading into the tapestry of history. Ellis realized that his grandmother had been the last archivist, and she had erased herself from existence to prevent the power from falling into the wrong hands. But she had left behind the key to the final step of the process. Ellis's journey led him to the heart of the archive, a massive, ancient book with pages that shifted between moments in time. The book was the core of the archivist's power, and it had been waiting for him all along. He opened the book and saw his own name written on the first page. As he read the words, the room began to shift, the walls flickering between past, present, and future. It was then that he understood. To become the archivist, to protect the archive, he would have to sacrifice himself. He would fade into the book, becoming a part of the very fabric of time and history. But Ellis knew that it was the only way to protect the world from the chaos that would unfold without the archivist's guidance. As Ellis stood on the brink of becoming the archivist, he was confronted by a vision of his grandmother, smiling warmly at him. "You are ready," she said. "You have the strength to carry the burden." Ellis hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. He placed his hand on the first page of the book, and a brilliant light enveloped him. In that moment, Ellis understood that he was not disappearing. He was becoming one with the archive, ensuring its survival for generations to come. The archive's whispers calmed, the mirrors settled, and the forgotten names were remembered once again. And somewhere, in the farthest reaches of time, Ellis watched over the archive, his name now etched into the very essence of history. The story ends here, but countless others await in the vast expanse of imagination. Subscribe to Storylight for more journeys into the unknown. See you on the next adventure.